This is one of the very important remedy for various respiratory complaints, maybe of chronic bronchitis, maybe of tuberculosis, maybe of emphysema, or maybe of occupational lung disease, where the person have got marked weakness in the chest, where the person is find very difficult to bring out the sputum. Weakness is the center at the chest. This is not calicab, or this is not calibicrovicum. This is not our arsenic alp, or this is not of any of the acid group of remedies. He has got paroxysms of cough. Cough comes in 3 paroxysms, like that of Metallicum. A spasmodic cough with jelly-like sputum. The sputum is like white of an egg. The sputum is very salty. The sputum is very sweetish, but not cupromet, not arsenic alp. He is so weak that he has to sit several times while dressing up. He cannot dress up like normal person. He has to sit. He cannot dress himself. While dressing, half of the way he has to sit and relax, then again he dress up. This is not that of our carboanimalis, or this is not our cocculus, or this is not our muriatic acid. So weak, while sitting he has to drop down to the chair. It's not like us normally sitting on chair. He will drop. Not muriatic acid, or not carboanimalis. This is one of the very important remedy where the pain comes gradually and remain for some times, then disappears gradually, like that of our platina, like that of our calmia, like that of our sulfuric acid, like that of our strontium cup. This is also very important remedy for the females who have got prolapsed uterus while straining at stool, or while straining at urination. They have got prolapsed sensation. This is not sepia, or this is not our lilium tigrinum. There is empty Arg-n sensation in the stomach. Feels always stomach is sinking, stomach is hanging down. Again, this is not our sepia, this is not our sulfur. This is also very important remedy for the person who have got severe colic, severe abdominal colic, where the person has to bend double, like that of our colocynth, or like that of our magnesium phos. But this is not MacPhos, this is not colocynth. The person is very sad and melancholic, like that of our natrum, like that of our pulsatilla. Feel like crying all the time, like our pulsatilla, like natrum, but not pulsatilla, not natrum. This is also very important remedy for the people, typewriters cramp. They get a spasm of the fingers, or while writing they get a cramps. This is not MacPhos. This is a drug, belongs to the periodic table of element, having atomic number 50, and this drug is Stannum Metallicum. Stannum Metallicum. This is a drug from the metal group. It belongs to the mineral kingdom, which is commonly known as tin, which has the formula Sn, having the atomic number, which is a magic number, 50, and atomic weight is 118.69. Practically, Stannum Metallicum is a very effective remedy for the various clinical conditions, maybe of acute conditions, maybe of chronic conditions, maybe of some of the clinical conditions like tuberculosis, or chronic lung infections, maybe of pneumonia, maybe of wasting diseases, maybe for the females prolapse. For the various clinical conditions, this Stannum Metallicum is been used. This drug is been introduced and proved by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. The ancients have recorded wonderful cures of the most serious disease with tin, which Hahnemann says. But in his day, until he proved it, it is only used as a vermifuge. Hahnemann's proving appears both in its Metromedica pura and in its chronic diseases with lots of magnificent symptoms. Tin is a metallic element with a symbol Sn, which derived from the Latin word stannum. The Latin name stannum originally meant an alloy of silver and lead and came to mean tin in the 4th century. The earlier Latin word for stannum was plumbum candidum. Initially they used to call it as a plumbum candidum because stannum properties is very similar to that of a lead property, or else they used to call it as a white lead. Lead is usually black in color, but similar property of lead which is white in color, they called it as a white lead or plumbum candidum. Stannum as the magic number of atomic number is 50. You can see the image in this slide. The tin is a silvery white metal that characteristically has a faint yellow hue. The tin is soft like that of indium. You can cut without much force. You can make whatever shape you want. You can break without much exerting any force on it. It is white silver in color and very soft in nature. Pure tin after solidifying, which keeps a mirror-like appearance similar to that of the most of the metals. It is very soft and very malleable metal. You can cut without any force. That is the peculiarity of stannum element. Pure tin after solidifying keeps a mirror-like appearance which is similar to that of mercury. Similar to that of most of the metal has got that mirror-like appearance. It is mostly stable in the air, but in powder form it oxidizes. Generally, the stannum is insoluble both in water and alcohol, but slowly soluble in cold dilute hydrochloric acid. Generally, it is insoluble with water and alcohol, but slowly it gets diluted or it get melted with hydrochloric acid, dilute nitric acid, and also in hot sulfuric acid it is soluble. You can see the images of tin. Tin, generally we use tin for packed food items or storing of some eatables. You can see a tin bars. When a bar of tin is bent, then you get a peculiar sound that is called as a tin cry, which can be heard as a result of twinning in the tin crystals. When you bend that tin, you get a peculiar one sound, which is a peculiarity of this tin. This trait you also see in other metals like cadmium, zinc, indium. Coming back to the periodic table of elements, you can see in this elements periodic table, number 50, the magic number, where you can see is stannum. Tin or stannum is a post-transition metal in the group 14th of the periodic table of elements, which is there in the P block, having atomic number 50. In the carbon group, 4A group, it is also seen in the 5th period in P block. Details about periodic table of elements I am not going to discuss over here, but at least you remember that you can see the stannum with atomic number 50, which is there in the carbon group of periodic table of elements, in the P block. This is what is enough for us to understand about the Stannum Metallicum. Tin is widely used for plating steel cans, which is used to store the food particles. For example, many of the eatables, maybe of milk powders or maybe of the baby food items, which comes in a tin. Maybe of the protein powders, which comes in a tin. Many of the drinks, for example, Coke, which comes in a tin can. When you open that tin can, you get that sound that's called a tin cry. So generally it has been used to store the food particles. In addition to that, tin alloys are employed in many ways for maybe for the electric purpose, for soldering purpose, for joining the pipes, for the electric circuits. They use tin because it is very soft, which can be breaked into very easily. You can make it in any shape and you can very easily usable. We'll see the sphere of action of Stannum Metallicum. It is a deep acting remedy and it is a long acting remedy. It has got head to toe actions, but it has got marked sphere of action on the nervous systems, mucous membranes, especially of the chest, throat, lungs, female reproductive organs. These are the general sphere of action of Stannum Metallicum. When stannum is ingested, it acts primarily on the cerebrospinal system, which giving rise to profound fatigue as well as paralysis and tendency for convulsions. On the nervous system, it also produces a neuralgic type of pains. It also acts prominently on the respiratory mucous membranes, producing catarrhal inflammation and profuse catarrhal discharges with dilatation of bronchi together with excessive prostration of the respiratory organs. So generally, maybe on the nervous system, maybe on the mucous membranes, maybe on the lungs, maybe on the throat, it has a property of producing weakness in the female genital organs, weakness in the nervous systems, weakness in the throat, weakness in the lungs. This is the pathophysiological action of Stannum Metallicum. Now, for whom this drug is adapted? Every drug has got its own adaptability. This drug, Stannum Metallicum, is a drug mainly adapted to the people who are very pale and weak persons, who have sunken eyes, like that of our cinchona, like that of our carbovage, like that of our carbonimalis. They have got profound weakness, who have long been growing feeble. Day by day they are becoming weak. They don't have that energy. Typically you get that phenomena in tuberculosis, maybe you get in malignancy. Such individuals who are very pale, people who have sunken eyes, people who are so much weak and prostrated. Weakness increases day by day with sallow, waxy face and a dark circle around the eyes. By looking at the person only, we will come to know this person was better previously, now he is becoming weak, he is becoming anemic, he is having sunken eyes, he is so much tired and prostrated, he doesn't have that much energy. It is also adapted to the women who are sad and despondent, feel like crying all the times. Typically you see in Nat M, typically you see in pulsate or sepia, such type of individuals who are so much tired and sad and despondent. Also adapted to the persons who have got womb troubles, especially in children. We'll see some of the keynote indication of Stannum Metallicum, for which all clinical conditions we can think of using Stannum Metallicum. The first and the most important clinical indication of Stannum Metallicum is they have marked extreme exhaustion of mind and body. Each word is very important. It is not just weakness, extremes of exhaustion of both the mind and body. Here, they got marked weakness in the mind and they got marked weakness in the body. The weakness is centered around the chest. Weakness seems to be proceed from the chest, then progresses everywhere. We have several drugs for weakness. For example, arsenic alb. For example, carboanimalis. For example, many of the acids. But peculiarity of Stannum Metallicum is here the center of weakness is on the chest. We have drugs like phosphorus and sepia. They have got weakness in the abdomen and pelvis. Here in Stannum, there is a great weakness in the chest, especially while talking, especially while laughing, while reading. He is unable to talk. He has to hold the chest while talking. So much weak to bring out the sputum. Secretions are there, but he is unable to bring out. He is so weak, instead of sitting in the chair, he will just drop into the chair, like that of muriatic acid, like that of carboanimalis. Normally we sit on chair, but this person is not just sitting, he just drops himself into the chair. That is a typical features of Stannum Metallicum, like muriatic acid. Even while dressing in the morning, the person has to sit several times to dress up. He or she cannot dress up like any other persons. So weak, has to sit several times to rest, then he can dress up. That you see in carboanimalis. This person is also weak and faint feeling while going downstairs. Person can climb up without much difficulties, but coming down or stepping down, he feels giddy, he feels faint while going downstairs, that type of borax. In calcareca, you have the person cannot climb up. Here the person cannot climb down. So this is in short about the key indication of Stannum Metallicum is marked weakness, especially on the chest, which is aggravation by talking, laughing, reading. Second keynote indication of Stannum Metallicum in clinical practice regarding the pain or any of the complaints which appears gradually and reaches to some peak, then ceases gradually. Maybe the pain, maybe the complaints, whichever the complaints the person is suffering, which is gradually increasing and reaching to the peak, then gradually disappearing. Especially maybe of the headache, maybe of the throat pain, maybe of stomach upset, maybe of colic, which comes gradually, reaches to the peak, then gradually disappears, which comes and goes with the sun. We have several other drugs we might have heard in argentum nitricum, in calmia, natromure, spigelia, sulfuric acid, platina, strontium carb, syphlinum. In calmia we have pain again, maybe of rheumatism, maybe of chest pain, which comes gradually, reaches the peak, then gradually disappears. Maybe of natromure, headache, which gradually starts when the sun rises. When the sun reaching the peak, it will be there. When sunset, it disappears. Gradually reaches, then gradually disappears. Spigelia is again maybe of cardiac complaints or rheumatism of the left shoulder or any other complaints, which comes gradually, then disappears. Platina, similar features are there, but platina, the pain associated with numbness will be there. The third, we have other drugs which has got similar manifestations other than argentum nitricum, calmia, natromure, spigelia. We have opposite of that. That is the pain comes suddenly and goes suddenly, like we typically you see in belladonna or aconite or chamomilla. The third key indication of Stannum Metallicum is a peculiar empty Arg-n sensation in the stomach, a sinking an empty organ sensation in the stomach. I think this symptom we might have seen in many drugs. Now which drug to prescribe? Every drug has got this symptom. Empty organ sensation in the stomach. The most important drug is sulfur. In sulfur, the empty organ sensation especially comes at early morning or around 11 a.m. We have again chelidonium, which has got empty organ sensation, which is associated with liver pathology, with constipation. We have got phosphorus, empty organ sensation in the stomach with burning, with craving for cold drinks, craving for salt, where you can think of phosphorus. In Syph is again a empty organ sensation with sinking down sensation as if the stomach is hanging down. With the person has so much indifference, with so much weakness. Then you can think of Syph with sensitive to the smell of food. Staphysagria is again the person will have empty organ sensation, more of which is psychosomatic in origin. Here, generally the person is weak, as we said in the initial part, the weakness progresses in the chest, then proceeds every other parts. The stomach is also so weak, empty, along with sunken eyes, prostration, where you can think stannum. Another indication of stannum, which is very similar to that of Nat M, which is very similar to that of pulsatilla, person is so much sad, person is so much despondent, feel like crying all the time, but crying makes her worse. And this is again, these symptoms you can see in natrum, pulsatilla, sepia, medorinum. But how to differentiate? Here you need not give this is the most important symptom, because here it is as a result of person is suffering from chronic illnesses, where the person feels very sad, person feels despondent, he is not going to recover, I am not going to feel better, and feel like crying all the time, but crying makes her worse. Whereas natrum, due to some incidents, maybe due to some grief factor. Pulsatilla is again typically a crying lady. She cannot speak without crying. Syph also has got a lady full of crying. Pulsatilla is a hot patient. Syph is a chilly patient. Natrum is again hot patient. In Stannum Metallicum, thermal state is not much clear. But you can think stannum is a remedy for the people who are so much sad and despondent, feel like crying all the time, but crying makes her worse. Maybe associated with other chronic illnesses. Stannum is also a very important remedy for the colic, where this person will have severe pain in the abdomen, where the pain comes gradually, which reaches to the peak, then gradually disappear, and which is very similar to that of our magnesium phos, which is very similar to that of our plumbum metallicum. I said plumbum and stannum, which is very similar. Here, colic, which is better by hard pressure, or colic is better by lying on the abdomen, across the knees, or lying on the shoulder. So this, you can see the image where the person with the colic is lying on the abdomen, or lying on the knees, across the knees, or lying on the shoulder. Severe colic, which is better by hard pressure, typically you can see in magnesium phos. You also see in colocynth. You also see in plumbum metallicum. In colocynth, the pain is mostly in the left sided. Here, no much side affinity. In magnesium phos, in addition to better by hard pressure, a person feels better by warm drinks. In plumbum metallicum, the person feels as the abdomen is being squeezed by a powerful hand, as the intestine is being twisted and tied to the spine. Such symptoms you can see in plumbum. But here, colic pain, where the pain comes gradually and reach to the peak, then gradually disappear with marked weakness and prostration, which is relieved by hard pressure and better by lying on the abdomen across the knees, and also better by lying on shoulder. Stannum metallicum is also indicated for headache and neuralgic complaints, where the pain begins lightly and increases gradually to the highest point, then gradually disappears, like that of platina. Here the headache or neuralgic complaint may be associated with underlying lung diseases, maybe underlying depressions, maybe underlying sadness, associated with person is having marked weakness, sunken eyes, and so much tired, where you can think Stannum metallicum for such symptoms. Stannum is also indicated for the person who is having nausea and vomiting from the odor of cooking food, especially in the morning time. These symptoms we might have seen in arsenicum, colchicum, sepia. Now, how to differentiate nausea and vomiting from the odor of cooking food, whether it's to give arsenicum, whether to give colchicum, whether to give sepia. In colchicum, which is more acuteness in the smell, cannot bear even the sight, forget the smell, he can't even look at the food items. He or she is so sensitive, acute sense to the smell, cannot bear even the sight and smell, where the person will have nausea and fainting episode. In colchicum, that nausea and vomiting, especially for the fish, egg and fat meat. Now coming back to the sepia. Sepia also has got that nausea and vomiting to the odor of cooking food. But in sepia is mostly during the time of pregnancy, associated with the empty organ sensation in the stomach, as if a ball is rising from the stomach. So where you can think of sepia, where associated with the empty organ sensation, which is not better by eating, especially during the pregnancy time, especially for females, then you can think of sepia. Now arsenicum associated with nausea and vomiting, they have got burning with increased thirst for sips of water, with marked weakness, with restlessness. You can think of arsenicum. This is how you can differentiate for the nausea and vomiting from the order of cooking food, whether to prescribe arsenicum or colchicum or sepia. Stannum is practically used for various respiratory conditions, typically for the cough, maybe associated with tuberculosis, maybe associated with bronchitis. The cough is so deep, hollow and shattering, strangulating, concussive type of cough. So this much varieties of qualifications of Stannum Metallicum cough. The cough is so deep, it is not just cough in the throat. It is so deep inside the lungs the person is coughing. Very deep and hollow cough, which comes in paroxysms, especially 3 paroxysms cough. So that much paroxysms cough, typically that you see in Cupra Metallicum. Cough in paroxysms, which is so much deep and so much hollow and which is concussive, especially when he is in the bed, towards the evening time, with empty sensation in the chest. Person is unable to bring out the sputum, feels so much weakness in the chest. Something is emptiness, something deep cough. Maybe you get in tuberculosis. The moment he laughs, which is aggravations, which you see in argentum, metallicum, drosera and phosphorus. Cough is also aggravation while lying on the right side. Now, for the cough, we have got several drugs, A to Z drugs are there. But typically, the stannum comes, the very deep cough, very paroxysmal cough as the typical 3 paroxysms with underlying pathology of tuberculosis or of pneumonia, where you can think Stannum Metallicum, where the person is so much weak, so much prostrated, is unable to get up and so much tired, almost is collapsing, where you can think of Stannum Metallicum. Now we have other drugs, cough in 2 paroxysms, you can see in Mercurius. Cough in single paroxysms, also drugs are there, calcarea carb. Here, how to differentiate Cupra Metallicum cough. In Cupra Metallicum is also a cough in 3 paroxysms, but in Cupra Metallicum we have associated with other symptoms. Very easy to remember, CCC. In Cuprum, the person will have, maybe person may be having cyanosis, maybe person is having convulsions, maybe person is having cramps, maybe person is having cholera. So you can differentiate Cupramet. Here, the cough is so deep, which is hollow, which is strangling, which is paroxysms, especially of 3 paroxysms, which is towards the evening time, laughing, talking, all those are aggravation lying on the right sides. You can think of Stannum Metallicum. Regarding the expectoration is so profuse, like that of white of an egg, which is sweetish and salty taste, like that of kali iode and sepia. The expectoration is very sour smelling, which is very putrid, like that of pyrogen, like that of mercurius, like that of pulsatilla. The expectoration is a musty yellow green, like a pus, like that of Nat M, like that of our Romex, like that of our Calicab, Dulcamera. The expectoration is so profuse and which is very salty taste, sometimes sweetish taste, which has a putrid odor, yellowish and green pus-like appearance, where you can think Stannum Metallicum could be your choice of remedy. Stannum is also indicated for weakness of deltoid muscles and weakness of arms, especially while singing or using the voice, producing a aching type of pain. Again, the pain which comes gradually and reaches to the peak, then gradually disappears with marked weakness, especially of the deltoid muscles and arms. You can think of Stannum Metallicum. We have got several other drugs for the deltoid muscle affections, maybe of spigelia, maybe of sanguinaria, maybe of medorinum, maybe of rustox. Each drug has got other modality to differentiate. Here, the most important key of Stannum is weakness in the deltoid with general weakness, with respiratory complaints, where you can think Stannum could be the remedy. Another indication of Stannum regarding the sweat. The sweat has musty odor, especially in the early morning after 4 a.m. or every morning, especially on the neck and the forehead, which is very debilitating. The sweat is so much musty odor, you may have the aversion for this person. Now we have several other drugs for the sweat smelling. For example, caladium. The caladium sweat is so sweet that attracts the flies. This caladium person, when he removes the shirt and hangs on some places, when maybe in the next day when you see full of ants will be there. So sweet sweat. Regarding the tuja is the sweat which smells like a honey, especially about the genital sweats, which smells like a honey, tuja. Sulfur, very bad or sour smelling sweat, or some books also says that sweat smells like an onion. In phosphorus, the perspiration smells like a sulfur. In sepia, very offensive sweat. Silish is again offensive sweat. Silish has got further qualification, the sweat which corrodes. So like that, each drug has got its own symptoms. Now coming back to the Stannum, here the sweat has a musty odor. Stannum is also indicated for hoarseness of voice or aphonia, especially after long use of voice, where the voice is very deep, husky, hollow voice, which is relieved for the time being by coughing or expectoration of mucus. But again, that hoarseness persists, or which leads to aphonia. In Stannum Metallicum, which is mainly because of tubercular affection of the larynx. Here the pathology is different than other drugs. We have got several other drugs like Argentum Metallicum, selenium, causticum, phosphorus, carbovage, coca. So drugs with different pathology, you can think. Here the pathology is because of deep-seated pathology involving the larynx. It is not just an acute, it is a chronic hoarseness or chronic aphonia after use of voice with a deep, husky, hollow voice, which is temporarily relieved by coughing and expectoration. Again it comes back. It is also indicated for laryngitis of singers. Another indication of Stannum Metallicum regarding the prolapse of uterus. Very rarely thought this drug, because the moment prolapse means we think remedies like sepia, remedies like murex, remedies like belladonna, remedies like sabina. Here, prolapse of the uterus, especially during the time of stool. We need to differentiate conium, we need to differentiate calcarea fos, we need to differentiate Noxomica, Podophyllum, Pulsatilla. Here, prolapse of the uterus with marked weakness associated with respiratory complaints, you may think Stannum Metallicum could be the remedy. Stannum Metallicum is also a remedy for convulsions, especially at the time of dentition in children. Convulsions may be because of worm infestations, where the person will have a typical tonic-clonic spasm with opisthotonus, thumbs are drawn backwards. We have got several other drugs for convulsions. This Stannum Metallicum may not be the first choice of remedy. We have remedies like Etusa synapium. We have remedies like Noxomica. We have remedies like Cuprometallicum. We have remedies like Absentinum. So like that, the drugs are many. I'm not going to discuss because that is again a big topic to discuss. Here you remember that this is a remedy for convulsions of teething children, maybe from worms with opisthotonus position. Another peculiarity of Stannum Metallicum is regarding the sleep position. Person sleeps by lying the one leg stretched out like extended and other is drawn upward. You can see in the image where the peculiar position of the sleeps lies on leg, one leg is stretched out and other leg is drawn upwards. We have several drugs for sleeping positions. For example, Sina, the person will sleep on abdomen. Pulsatilla, person sleeps with extra pillows and putting the hand over the forehead. So each drug, each appearance, each sign will give a clue for prescription. Here the peculiarity of the sleep is leg is stretched out or extended and other leg is drawn upward. Stannum Metallicum is also indicated for yellowish secretions. Maybe of sputum is yellow, maybe leucorrhea is yellow, even the tongues look yellow. For yellowish secretions, we have remedies like Pulsatilla, Pyrogenum, Nat M Sulf, Kali Sulf. But you can think where the expectoration is yellow, associated with weakness, tiredness, with tubercular pathology, with the difficult to expectorate, with hollow paroxysms of cough, you can think Stannum. Stannum Metallicum is also indicated for spasmodic twitching of muscles like that of our Cuprometallicum, like that of our magnesium phos. Spasmodic twitching of muscles, especially of forearms. The fingers jerk when the person is holding the pen. Typically, we say that typewriter's paralysis, which you've seen also in magnesium phos. We also see in rustox. We also see in ruta. Stannum Metallicum is also indicated for worm complaints. I think this drug may not be practically used as much as other drugs like Sina, other drugs like Spigelia, other drugs like sulfur or santonin for worm troubles. Now if you look back the symptomatology of Stannum Metallicum closely, everything seems to be originated from the worm complaints. A number of worm symptoms appear in the pathogenesis of Stannum Metallicum. For example, the sinking, empty, all gone feeling, which typically you see in worm troubles. Or typical abdominal colic pain where the person is lying on the abdomen, which is again you see in many of the worm diseases. Tendency for excessive mucus secretions where the person is pale, sunken eyes and sickly look, which is also you see in worm troubles. With a dark ring around the eyes, that is also you see in worm troubles. Again, convulsions. So if you see, overall you have many of the worm symptoms which you see in Stannum Metallicum, but very rarely prescribed because of other, we are so much prejudiced with Sina, we are so much prejudiced with sulfur, we are so much prejudiced with Spigelia. Stannum is also indicated for exhausting night sweats. The sweat is so profuse and marked weakness of the sweat with very offensive musty odor, which typically you may think of in conditions like tuberculosis. Again, the night sweats, you have got several drugs like tubovenom, you have got arsenic alb, ars iode. You need to differentiate based on the other concomitant symptoms. Regarding the elements for Stannum Metallicum, element from emotions, element from fright, element from masturbation, element from dentition, element from worm troubles, and also element from using voice. Regarding the modalities, generally aggravated by laughing, singing, talking, even the touch. Also lying on the right side is aggravation. Drinking anything warm is aggravation. Aggravation motion. Aggravation during stool. Aggravation descending downwards. Aggravation using the voice. Least exertion is intolerant. Aggravation in the early morning 5 a.m. Amelioration by coughing, amelioration by expectorations, amelioration by heart pressure, amelioration by rapid movement. Amelioration is also better by bending double. These are the various modalities of Stannum Metallicum in general. Regarding the remedy relationship, Stannum Metallicum is complementary to pulsatilla and follows after causticum. Regarding the emotional level or mental symptoms of Stannum Metallicum, you can imagine a person who is suffering from chronic illness, especially suffering from tuberculosis or chronic lung illnesses. How is mental state? Similar to that you see in Stannum Metallicum. The person will be so much sad, so much despondent. Person is having hopeless that his diseases are incurable. Feel like crying all the time, but crying make her complaints worse. You have that symptoms in natromure, pulsatilla and sepia, but in pulsatilla crying feels a little better. Here this sadness or despondent or hopelessness mainly associated with underlying diseases what they are suffering. Basically a person is very sensitive about others' comments like that of staphysagria. Person is very much anxious and nervous. Person is very much sad, especially she is sad before menses and she feels better after menses. Person is not interested to talk to anyone, disinclination to talk. Cannot answer question because of his weakness. He is so weak, whatever you ask, he is not able to answer. Person can go along well with people, but at the same time he get a aversion to people because of its weakness, that he is unable to answer anything. So he also don't want people around him. He is so much anxious about the future, totally hopeless state, feels so weak that they know that they are going to die. Person will have a difficulty in concentration, difficulty in concentrating the mental work. The person's thought will go from one subject to another subject, begins one task and get off into another without finishing any. So this is all the few of the mental state of Stannum Metallicum. Generally the person is hopeless, person is sad and despondent, feel like crying all the time, but crying makes the person worst. Person feels that something bad is going to happen, that his disease is incurable and he doesn't want to talk to anyone. So this is in short about Stannum Metallicum mind. Regarding the respiratory complaints, as we learnt in the keynote indications, mainly indicated for deep-seated lung diseases where the person can hardly talk from the weakness of the chest. There's much of mucus with difficulty to talk. There's a much of mucus with difficulty to expectoration. The cough is most of the time is a spasmodic cough, a paroxysmal cough. Especially cough comes in 3 paroxysms. Like that, 3 times he'll cough. Then there is a gap. Again 3 times a cough. But there is a cough is so deep. You know that some amount of secretions are there, but he is unable to bring out. Must hold the chest while coughing, that of you see in bryonia, like that you see in Nat M self. In bryonia, person is holding the chest because movement is aggravation. Nat M self also hold the chest because again there is aggravation by exertion and movement. But here it is not because of movement aggravation. Here because the person is so weak, he is unable to bring out the sputum. The dry cough at night with sweetish or salty expectoration in the daytime. The expectoration looks like white of an egg, sometimes it looks like yellow. Cough is aggravated by laughing, talking or using voice. Cough is also aggravation by lying on the right side. Cough is also aggravation in the evening till the midnight. Cough is also aggravation by exertion. There is an empty sensation in the chest along with the cough. The expectoration, after coughing and coughing and coughing, it comes so profuse, very offensive, putrid, like white of an egg, which has the sweetish and salty and sour and putrid taste, which has the color of yellowish green in nature. So clinically you can think Stannum Metallicum maybe in case of laryngitis, maybe in asthma, maybe in bronchitis, maybe in pneumonia, maybe in tuberculosis. There's a hoarseness of voice with aphonia, hoarseness of voice in singers, with the pain where the pain comes gradually and reach the peak where it gradually disappears. Along with stitching type of pain is also felt in the left side of the chest, which is aggravation by stooping, inspiration and also aggravation by expectorations. This is in short about the respiratory complaints of Stannum Metallicum.